Abba Kovner, Lithuanian Hebrew poet, writer, partisan, officer in Israel's War of Independence, founder of Beit Tfutzot, the Diaspora Museum. In his monumental work on the Holocaust, Megillat HaEdut, Scrolls of Testimony, he described a Passover Seder that occurred in the 7th block of Auschwitz-Birkenau, the block designated for the sick, the last stop on the way to the gas chambers. Kovner writes, all night, in the faintest whisper, they had been telling the story of the Exodus from Egypt. With their legs hanging down from their bunks, they repeated by heart what they could remember, helping each other out. They had also begun by blessing the 2 wafers, a kind of matzah that they had prepared well ahead, fearfully and in great secrecy, bread of affliction in every sense. They tasted nothing else, despite the gnawing hunger, drank only the 4 measured sips of water they had set aside, no more. Then they placed their elbows on their knees, began to sing the traditional songs. They could hardly be said to be singing, for only their lips moved soundlessly. A young man from Czechoslovakia broke the silence. The time is coming, he said, when released prisoners will return home, and the Jewish people will once again celebrate this festival of freedom properly, with all due splendor. Will it be possible for Jews in time to come to sit around the Passover table, tell of the Exodus from Egypt, without telling of the Exodus from Auschwitz? His companions were shocked by the acuteness of the young man, gaping at his question, visibly and inwardly, each of them silent. Eventually, Rabbi Nathan Cassuto of Florence answered, a survivor will come and enlighten them. And sensing the confusion in the eyes of his fellow Jews, he explained, what happened to one man can't suffice to tell the story of our times. A few will survive, solitary embers. And if a survivor can tell no more than what he himself went through, how can he be a witness for his generation? Perhaps each of us here and now is charged with the holy duty of hearing what happened to the others, not only to himself, so that when the time comes, whoever of us survives will be able to serve as the mouthpiece for the many. So let each of us place his story, her story, in the safekeeping of his or her companion's memory. And God willing, the last of us fated to survive will be the first to write the scroll of testimony for our generation. Thus began one of the most unconventional and undoubtedly most powerful discussions at a Seder in our long history, with victim after victim of the Shoah brutality sharing their personal memories that only those unfortunate enough to be part of those times could begin to comprehend. One of those memories was shared by Rabbi Raphael Habib of Salonika, Greece, a community that had suffered more than almost any other. He said when they put the Jews of Salonika in the railroad wagons, slammed the doors and bolted them, the people felt their spirits fall. Slowly the sound of voices died away. The clutter of the train wheels grew louder. Already they had traveled beyond the city limits, beyond the realm of the known. At that moment when everyone was silent as though struck dumb, a woman's sobbing was heard from one end of the car. It rose and cut through the air from one end to the other, unceasing. Rabbi Habib continued, know that the sobbing by an unknown Jewish woman at the end of a cattle car full of crushed and downtrodden Jews was for me a blazing symbol of life. I suddenly realized that weeping, no matter how bitter, is the symbol of struggling humanity. At that moment, it was though I heard a voice calling in the words of Ezekiel the prophet, B'damai chai, live in spite of your blood. B'damai chai, live in spite of your blood. 2 nights last week, in ways that we would not have even imagined a few weeks earlier, let alone last Pesach. We sat at Seder tables, in most cases, far less elaborate than those of previous years. And we turned the pages of a Haggadah, finding it challenging to focus on the traditional text, as the numbers around our tables were reduced to those living in the same home, without so many of the family members present, even children, even grandchildren, who would have populated the table in the past. Many did connect through Zoom and other technology, salvaging some of the joy lost by current circumstances. But however we frame it, this has been a Passover for the ages, one not easily forgotten, but one the memory of which will be with us for years to come. Even though it would be insane to equate our current experience with that of a Seder occurring at Auschwitz 3/4 of a century ago, I do find a parallel between today and Rabbi Habib's comment at that tragic Seder, when he noted that the woman's weeping, the deep sorrow of those days, reflected an affirmation of life, echoing the prophet's injunction, "V'damaya chayi," live in spite of your blood, which can be understood in today's setting to suggest that we live, that we carry on as best we can in spite of COVID-19, that we find meaning notwithstanding the severe restrictions and hardships imposed upon us by the current pandemic. The Jews gathered that night in the horrid 7th block of Auschwitz-Birkenau. They understood that sometimes it is more than one Haggadah that we need to study at the Seder table, that more than one narrative is necessary to teach future generations what it means today to be a Jew. That sense of what we have been through both in ancient times and in recent past, and an appreciation of the risks, the dangers, and the uncertainties we face today are all necessary for us to better face the challenges of today and weather the storms that may lie ahead, of which today we are totally unaware. As the years march on, since the end of the Second World War, I've often officiated at funeral services for survivors of the Shoah, many if not most of whom have left behind children, grandchildren, and often great-grandchildren. I often imagine if these survivors of the Shoah, who 75 years earlier emerged from the war alone in the world, having lost parents, siblings, and sometimes wives and children as well, who 75 years ago were themselves barely alive, totally uncertain as to any possibility of future, with no place to go, no home to which to return. Could these survivors dare imagine that 5, 6, 7, 8 decades later, children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren would mourn them? Could they have dared to imagine 75 years ago that there would be a strong, vibrant state of Israel? That wherever they could choose to live, their descendants could freely practice Judaism to the full extent of their ability and desire? Could they, in fact, 75 years ago, have had the temerity to hope that the Jewish people would survive the darkness that came so close to destroying them and emerge stronger and more vibrant than ever? Sadly, since the COVID-19 emergency began, Cantor Loomer and I have had occasion to officiate at several funerals, and 3 for COVID victims. All funerals were graveside, limited at first to 50 people, then 20, then 10, and somewhere COVID-19 is a factor, to none. And Shiva, save for Zoom gatherings or other electronic meeting places, impossible. Normally the Chag, the festival, would impose its own challenges on Shiva, but now limitations imposed by Yom Tov are irrelevant, since traditional Shiva, like in-person minyanim, like synagogue services, is currently impossible. Earlier this year, a beloved member of Beth David passed away. At his funeral, I shared a conversation that we had had 23 years earlier, when my father had died 3 days before Rosh Hashanah. Because that year in my Shmini Atzeret Yizkor sermon, I had expressed sadness in having had only 1 day to observe Shiva because of the calendar. After the service, he said to me very simply, "You know, you're lucky that you had 1 day of Shiva." Was someone else to have said that to me? Someone who might have meant that the less Shiva, the better? Who might have felt that a week of Shiva would have been a waste of time, better spent at work or elsewhere? A trend too commonly seen in our community these days. In that case, I would have been nonplussed. But I was not offended, far from it, because the member who spoke to me, whom we lost this year, was a survivor, who knew what it meant to lose parents, to lose family, and not have had the luxury of even a moment of mourning, an hour of ritual, a second of Shiva. He knew what it meant to lose a parent and not have the luxury of a funeral service, a burial plot where one could place a matzeva, a spot one could visit for kever avot, before a yontif, on a yurtzeit, on the day of a child's wedding, when symbolically one often visits the graves of parents to invite them to attend. He, like so many thousands upon thousands of survivors, knew what it was like not to be allowed to mourn. No interruption to slave labor, no break in starvation, no relief in suffering. And I, who could offer proper burial to a parent, who could observe Shiva, so what if the Shiva was interrupted by Yom Tov? Because sometimes in Jewish history, we learn even the ability to mourn is a blessing never to be taken for granted. And today, again, in no terms equivalent to the experience of Holocaust survivors, mourning is difficult. Just as almost every aspect of life itself, socially, economically, politically, is deeply challenging. True, I've cited examples from the Shoah, largely because Yom HaShoah is observed 5 days after the conclusion of Pesach. At all times, but especially at this season, it is important to reflect on the legacy of the 6 million and our mission to keep their memories alive and forever part of our consciousness as Jews. But in no way would I use the Shoah or other examples of past Jewish suffering to minimize the pain and the fear that we confront now at this moment of planetary uncertainty. The pain and the fear of the present moment is not lessened by suggesting that we've been through worse, even though, of course, we all know and appreciate that we have. There's a popular Hebrew song conveying a saying of Rav Nachman of Bratslav, with which we're all familiar. Kol ha'olam kulo gesher tsar ma'od. That the world in its entirety is a narrow bridge. For ha'ikar, the essence, lo lefached klal, not to be afraid. With all due respect to Rav Nachman, I think this is the wrong message. How can one not be afraid when danger lurks, when one doesn't know where illness may appear, when one, often old, often infirm, is relegated to aloneness, when family and friends cannot visit? How, under these circumstances, can one not be afraid? As catchy as the tune may be, I don't think Rav Nachman's words work here. Like Roosevelt, who famously said as the US entered the Second World War after Pearl Harbor, we have nothing to fear but fear itself. Tell me, were the boys who landed at Normandy 75 years ago, among them many members of our congregation, were they unafraid? Undoubtedly, they were terrified, but with inordinately heavy losses, they prevailed. The world was saved. Fear sometimes, including now, is unavoidable. It's the natural response to a forced loss of control over much of our lives, such as that we now experience. But in fairness to Rav Nachman, I want to end with another of his sayings, a saying that was reproduced on the entranceway to the Bratslaver Shtibel in the Warsaw Ghetto. Gewalt Yidden, seid sich nicht miayish. For heaven's sake, Jews, don't despair. True, in spite of the storms we've weathered, the losses we've incurred, the tragedies we've endured, we've chosen life. We have refused to despair. The week after Yom HaShoah, we will observe Yom HaAtzmaut, the celebration of Israel's 72nd year of independence. Out of the ashes of destruction, we have formed a miracle in the desert, built a vibrant, dynamic, beautiful Jewish state. Escaping the flames of hatred, we have built strong Jewish communities, great centers of Jewish learning, limitless Jewish opportunities for our youth to flourish in their heritage. Because fear notwithstanding, we knew not to succumb to despair, not to relinquish hope. With all my heart, I wish that I could stand before those courageous Jews who made Seder in the 7th block of Auschwitz-Birkenau on the very threshold of death. I wish I could stand before them and say that together with the Haggadah of ancient enslavement and redemption, their personal Haggadah, their stories of heroism and perseverance have survived intact. And that as a result, as a people, we're stronger and more vibrant than ever. And so too our stories of this year, this challenging Pesach season, will remind us in years to come never to take for granted our freedoms, our heritage, our families, our lives. Together with our own beloved family members, teachers, and others who helped shape our lives, all those we've lost throughout history, and those many thousands worldwide who have succumbed to COVID-19, in this hour of Yizkor, we will remember them all with love. We turn now to the Yizkor service, which will be, text will be placed on the screen. Cantor? Cantor, you may be muted, so please check. Michael, can you unmute Can you unmute Marshall? Rebecca? We'll be there in a moment.
Adonai Madam Vatedoeu Ben Enosh Vat Chashveu Adam Lehevel Dama Yamo V'Ketzel Over Babokr Yatzitz V'Chalav Lo Erev Yimalel V'Yavesh Limnot Yameinu Kein Hoda V'Navi Levo V'Chochemo Shmoret Amorei Yashar Ki Acharit Lei Shalom.
We'll read responsively on the right-hand side, page 508. Let us praise the Lord in this time of remembrance for the lives we have shared, for the memories we cherish.
Let us praise God even in times of sorrow as we remember God's many kindnesses to us.
God's love accompanies us through life's journey, so that even in death we are not forsaken.
Mercifully, God redeems us from the grave, calling our souls to life everlasting.
As parents have compassion upon their children, so the Lord has compassion upon those who revere God.
For God knows how frail and fragile we are, how vulnerable we are to disease and death.
As blades of grass and flowers in the field tarry only briefly before they wither away,
so do the days of our lives pass swiftly by. They are too quickly gone, never to return.
but the Lord's steadfast love endures forever. Those who trust in the Lord need not feel forsaken.
They know their healer will bind up their wounds and will wipe away the tears from their faces.
This faith they bequeath to their children's children, a precious legacy for all generations. Eternal God, we've come to sanctify our fleeting lives by linking them with yours, O God, O life of all ages. And in you, generations past and present and future are united in one bond of life. We're aware of, at this sacred hour, of those individuals through whom we've come to know of your grace and love. Many of those to whom we owe so much are with us, thank God. We pray that we may be able to reward their goodness and their devotion to us through acts of love and loyalty, but others have passed forever from our midst, leaving us a heritage of tender memories, which now fill our minds and our hearts. Some of us recall beloved parents who watched over us and sacrificed for us, guided us, encouraged us. Some of us recall a loving wife or husband with whom we were truly united in our hopes and our pains, our failures and our achievements, our joys, our sorrows. And some remember brothers and sisters who grew up with us, sharing in the play of childhood and the youthful adventure of discovering life's possibilities, bound to us by family traditions, by years of shared experience. And some tragically called to mind children, entrusted to us all too briefly, taken from us before they reached their years of fulfillment, to whom we gave our loving care, from whom we received a trust which enriched our lives. Many of us recall beloved relatives and friends who enhanced our lives and whose visible presence can no longer return to cheer, encourage, and support us. We remember all of them. We remember those who paid the ultimate price for being Jewish throughout our history, from ancient days through the Shoah, those who've fallen victims of terror, who've fallen the battles for the reclaiming of the Jewish state and the building of our wonderful homeland. All of them we recall and remember with love and we add, of course, to our prayers those who've fallen during the pandemic that we currently experience. May all of their memories be a source of comfort and strength to us now and always. At this time, those who say Yizkor will see the appropriate pages on the screen. And we invite you, if you're able to stand, do so, but if not, it may be easier to read from a seating position, that's also okay. Please say the appropriate prayers at this time.
El male rachamim, shochein bameromim, hametzei menucha nechona, al kanefei השכינה במעלות קדושים קדושים וטהורים כזוהר הרקיע מה זה את נשמות 600 ריבו אנשים, נשים וטף וילדים וילדות שנפלו מימי השואה ואת נשמות חיילי צבא הגנה לישראל שמסרו נפשם על קדושת השם העם והארץ ואת נשמות כל נפטרי בית הכנסת, בית דוד, בני ישראל, ביתם, שכולנו מתפללים בירס קרת נשמותיהם בגן עדן תהיה מנוחתם ענב על הרחמים יזכירם בסתר כנפיו לעולמים בצרור החיים נשמותיהם אדוני הוא נחלתם וינוחו בשלום על משכבותיהם ונאמר
Amen. You join responsively on page 521. One page back, Michael. Okay. Mizmor David Adonai Ro'i lo echsar.
The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want.
Binat deshi abitzeni.
God makes me lie down in green pastures
Amei menuchot yinahaleni.
and leads me beside the still waters.
Nafshi yeshovev yancheni v'maglei tzedek l'ma'an shemo.
God revives my spirit and guides me in paths of righteousness for the sake of the divine name.
Gam ki elech begeit salmavet lo irara ki yata imadi.
Though I walk in the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil, for you are with me.
Shivtecho mishantecha heimei nachamuni.
Your rod and your staff comfort me.
Taroch lefanai shulchan neged sorerai.
You prepare a table before me in the presence of my foes.
Yishantev Hashem l'roshi kosir vaya.
You anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows.
Tov v'hased yerdefuni kol yemei chayai.
Surely goodness and kindness shall follow me all the days of my life,
V'shavti b'veit Adonai le'orech yamim.
and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever.
Those who said Yizkor, please join now in Mourner's Kaddish. Yit Gadol v'yit Kadash Shemei Rabbah B'alma divarach chirutei v'yamlich malchutei v'chaye echon v'yom echon v'chaye d'chol beit Yisrael b'agala v'zman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei Shmei Rabba Mevorach Le'olam Le'olmei Almaya Yitbarach V'yishtabach V'yitpa'ar V'yitromam V'yitnasei V'yitadar V'yitaleh V'yithalal Shemei D'Kudsha B'richu Le'ela Min Kol Birchata V'shirata Tushbechata V'nechemata Damiran B'alma V'imru Amen.
Amen.
Yehei Shalom Rabba Min Shemaya V'chaim Aleinu V'al Kol Yisrael V'imru Amen. Oseh Shalom Bimromav, V'yaseh Shalom, Aleinu v'al Kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen.
Amen.
In addition to the services that will take place once Yom Tov is over, and you can follow on our website the various daily services that will be taking place, please note that we will be announcing after Yom Tov a very special reading of Megillat HaShoah Tuesday morning at 11 a.m., which is being basically transmitted throughout the world with participation globally, because joining us in sponsoring are several major organizations of our movement, from Israel to South America and Europe and everywhere else. And so please join us for a global reading of Megillat HaShoah Tuesday. Information will be arriving before Shabbat and in the early days of next week. At this time, we conclude with the singing of Adon Olam. Cantor Loomer.
Adon Olam Asher Malach B'terem Kol Yitzir Nivra Le'et Nasa V'chevtzo Kol Azay Melech Shemo Nikra Ve'acharei Kichelot HaKol Levado Yimeloch Nora Ve'hu Haya Ve'hu Hove Ve'hu Yeh B'tifara Ve'hu Echad Ve'yeh והמשלו להכפירה, בלי ראשית, בלי תכלית, ולא העוז והמשרה, והוא אלי וחי גואלי, בצור חבלי ביצרה, והוא ניסי ומנוס לי, מנת כוסי ביום מקרא, בידו אפקיד רוחי, בעת אישן ואירה, ואם רוחי גביעתי, אדון לי ולא אירה, ואם רוחי גביעתי, אדון לי ולא אירה.
Well, Chag Sameach, stay well, stay safe, and we look forward to seeing all of you soon.
I'll just say on behalf of the everyone gathered, we had over 200 participants, which means we had probably over 300 people on the call today, which is wonderful. Thank you very much to our extraordinary clergy for putting this all together for us. Rabbi Scheim, as usual, an exceptional sermon. To Cantor Loomer, to Rabbi Walker, to Michael Rubin. So, thank you all very much, not just for this service, but all of the services this week. It's been very much appreciated, and it's so wonderful that we have the technology and the ability to stay together as a community under these difficult circumstances. As Rabbi Scheim mentioned, there are lots of programs coming up. We're heading, of course, into 2 days of Yom Tov, but please do check the website. Lots going on as we get through the end of Pesach, just 2 more days of Pesach food. And then we're through Pesach and we're back into our regular program. We'll, of course, see everybody here for our pre-Kabbalat Shabbat service on Friday afternoon at 5:30. And then there are programs, again, of course, going on over the weekend. Everyone, please do continue to take good care of yourself. If you know of anybody who needs any assistance, any extra help, a meal, any kind of support, there are all kinds of resources available that the community has organized. Please do let me or any of the clergy know. And as I say, please stay healthy and take care of your loved ones. Chag Sameach to everybody.
Chag Sameach.
I love this. We're taking an opportunity to post the names of our loved ones, and please feel free to stay on the line for as long as you want and continue to post names.
Chag Sameach, everybody.
Chag Sameach, everybody.
Chag Sameach.
Everybody.
Sameach.
All the best. Stay well.
Stay healthy.
The organization of this have this online.
Everyone.
Howard and Robert, are you still there?
Sameach to everybody.
We're still here.
I don't see your picture.
We're still here.
Oh, there you are.
Here I am.
Hi. Wasn't that beautiful?
Very beautiful.
Yeah.
175 people, eh? No, 200.
No,
200.
200. Gosh, 200.
Marion, you can scroll to see the other people by pushing the blue triangle on the right of your screen.
At the bar. Howard?
Yep.
See, I posted my parents and dad on the chat box.
Yeah, did you see Igor and Olivia?
Sameach to one and all.
Hi, Michael.
Howard, I'll speak to you later.
Yeah, I'll talk to you later.
Love you all, everybody.
Okay.
Good night.
Love you.
Michael,
Everybody, take care.
Sameach, everybody.
Everybody.
Bye,
Stay
everyone.
healthy.
Great to see everyone.
That's
Bye.
incredible.
Bye, Heather.
Bye.
Bye, Arnie. We'll talk to you later. Love you all.
Very much.
Bye. You can't see me, my camera.
I think I saw it scroll by.
What?
Good to see
What'd you
who's
say?
who.
Yeah.
Howard, I didn't hear you.
No, Roz is scrolling through the names so she can show me that you posted.
Yeah.
She's telling her I see it.
Scroll it. How do you scroll it?
Haksameah to the rabbi.
Marion, there's a bar on the right-hand side of the chat box. Take your mouse and scroll down the bar.
Ellie, can you get?
Don't know what it is.
We'd have to use it.
Hi, Francis.
I said that.
I'm going on.
Valley.
Bye, guys. Love. Hi, Francis. Hag Sameach. It's Brenda.
Hag Sameach.
Yeah.